The day started just like any other, until a package arrived at my doorstep. In the quiet humdrum of my everyday life, nothing could have prepared me for what that morning held. A simple package, left on my doorstep, laced with an air of mystery. It wasn't expected, not even remotely anticipated. A box without a return address, without a hint of its origin. My curiosity piqued. I brought the mysterious package inside, the weight of it surprising in its lightness. Each layer of wrapping I removed seemed to reveal a deeper level of intrigue, a riddle waiting to be solved. And at the heart of it all, nestled in a bed of velvet, was an antique locket. It was an object of beauty, the locket, with its intricate carvings and faded gold hue. But it was more than just its physical appearance that held my gaze. There was a certain charm, a certain pull, a magnetism that was impossible to ignore. I could feel it, a whisper of unease that swept over me each time my fingers grazed the cold metal. It was as if the locket had an aura of its own, a silent story, a hidden past. I held it up to the light, the locket, and watched as the rays danced on its surface. It was almost mesmerizing, the way it seemed to capture and reflect the light, each facet revealing a different aspect of its charm. But the more I looked, the more I felt a sense of unease creep in. There was something about the locket that didn't feel right, something that sent shivers down my spine. The locket seemed to hold a mystery, a secret that was begging to be unlocked, and as the day wore on, that sense of unease turned into a feeling of dread. I couldn't shake off the feeling that something was terribly wrong, that the locket was not just an ordinary piece of jewelry. Little did I know, this was not just an ordinary locket. I could not shake off the unsettling feeling about the locket, so I decided to investigate. There was something about the intricate designs, the chilling coldness of the metal, the eerie glimmer of the gemstone that tugged at my curiosity. My quest led me down a rabbit hole of history and folklore, each discovery more unsettling than the last. The locket, it seemed, had a dark and twisted past. It belonged to a woman named Agnes, a resident of a small village in the heart of England. This was not your average 17th century tale. Agnes was not your typical woman of the time. She was a pariah, feared and misunderstood. Accused of witchcraft, she was ostracized by her community, a victim of superstition and fear. Agnes, they said, was a witch. She was blamed for the village's misfortunes, the unexplained deaths, the failed crops, the sudden illnesses. The locket was her talisman, a symbol of her power and her curse. As the whispers of her witchcraft grew louder, the villagers turned against her, sentencing her to death for her supposed crimes. But Agnes did not go quietly. Oh no, she was not the kind to accept her fate without a fight. On the eve of her execution, she placed a curse on the locket. Whoever possesses this locket, she declared, will suffer my fate. A fate of fear, of misunderstanding, of death. The locket has passed through countless hands since Agnes, each owner meeting an untimely and tragic end. Some say it's coincidence, others claim it's the curse. But one thing is certain, the locket carries with it a dark and ancient power that seems to defy explanation. I laughed it off, dismissing it as a mere legend. How I wish I hadn't. That night I felt a cold chill creep into my room. It was a feeling I can only describe as a shiver of dread, a premonition of something terrible waiting to unfold. The room, once my sanctuary, now seemed to hold an unseen presence, an entity that mocked the very notion of safety. The silence of the night was broken by strange, unexplained noises. Whispers, as if carried by the wind, seemed to echo around me, formless and yet full of menace. The soft clink of metal against metal, a sound that reminded me eerily of the locket, added a haunting melody to the symphony of fear that was slowly enveloping me. I noticed objects around me moving on their own. A book casually flipped open on a page I hadn't read. The curtains fluttered despite the lack of breeze, and the locket. It swung in a strange rhythm, as if dancing to a tune only it could hear. I could feel the very air around me pulsating with an energy that was both foreign and terrifying. And then there was the feeling of being watched. It's a sensation you can't quite shake off, a prickling at the back of your neck, a shadow in the corner of your eye that disappears when you turn to look. It was as though the walls had eyes, eyes that were fixated on me, tracking my every move, my every breath. As the night grew darker, my fear grew stronger. My heart pounded in my chest like a drum, each beat echoing the growing realization that I was not alone. The locket, that seemingly innocent gift, had become my nightmare. It was a chilling thought, the idea that a simple object could hold such a sinister secret. The dread was suffocating, a heavy weight on my chest that made every breath a struggle. But it was the icy touch of fear that truly gripped me, the undeniable dread that something was terribly wrong. I knew then something was terribly wrong. I tried to rid myself of the locket, but it always found its way back to me. The uncanny persistence of this object was unnerving, to say the least. I tried burying it in the woods, but the very next morning, I'd find it on my nightstand. I even went as far as tossing it into the river, but there it was again, gleaming on my coffee table, dry as a bone. Every attempt to sever the connection between myself and this cursed object only seemed to strengthen its hold. It was as if the locket, and whatever otherworldly force it harbored, was taunting me, mocking my feeble attempts to escape its influence. And with each return, the paranormal activities escalated. The nights were no longer silent, instead filled with whispers that seemed to echo from the very walls. Shadowy apparitions appeared at the corner of my vision, disappearing as soon as I turned to face them. The air in my home grew colder, heavier, as if burdened by an unseen presence. My dreams, once a refuge from the waking nightmare my life had become, were invaded by horrifying visions. I found myself trapped in twisted, distorted landscapes, pursued by monstrous figures that bore the locket around their grotesque necks. Each morning, I'd wake drenched in a cold sweat, the remnants of the nightmares lingering like a noxious fog. Worse still were the physical manifestations of the curse. Bruises appeared on my skin as if I'd been gripped by unseen hands. My reflection in the mirror began to distort, my features twisting into a grotesque caricature of myself. The fear was all-consuming, gnawing at the edges of my sanity. I was at the mercy of this cursed object, my every attempt to escape thwarted. The locket wasn't just haunting me, it was playing with me, toying with my fear and desperation. I was trapped, with no escape. The terrifying reality of my situation was crystal clear. I was not the owner of the locket. Instead, it owned me. The thought was chilling, and I could only wonder with dread what the locket, and whatever force it contained, had in store for me next. I was trapped, with no escape. In my despair, I sought help from a local historian. I was looking for answers, for a way out. The historian was a weathered old man, his eyes full of stories and secrets. As I revealed my tale, his face darkened, and I felt a cold shiver run down my spine. He told me about the locket's dark past. The woman in the locket was not just a victim of tragic love, but a victim of a cruel curse. A curse that didn't end with her life. The locket was not just a keepsake, it was a tomb. Upon her death, her soul was trapped within the locket, bound to it for all eternity. Her fate was to forever relive her tragic end, her eternal sorrow seeping into the lives of those who dared to possess the locket. But that's not all, the historian said, his voice barely above a whisper. The curse doesn't just bring the woman's fate to the owner, it traps the owner's soul in the locket after death. My heart seemed to stop at his words. I was not just living her sorrow, I was destined to share her fate. The realization hit me like a ton of bricks. The sorrow, the misfortune, the presence, it was all real. The locket was not just cursed, it was a prison that held not just the woman's tormented soul, but was ready to trap mine. The fear and despair I felt was indescribable. I was not just haunted, I was the next victim. The locket wasn't just cursed, it was a prison, and I was its next prisoner. The final revelation was not just terrifying, it was horrifying. I was a prisoner, bound to an eternity of suffering and despair, forever trapped in a locket, a prisoner of a curse I never asked for.